We're going to freshen up this old wooden bench and give it a new colour. Before you begin, make sure you have everything you need. Linseed oil paint in the colour of your choice. Boiled linseed oil. Drying agent. Linseed oil varnish. Empty pots for mixing the paint in. Stick for mixing the paint. Gauges for measuring with. Brushes. Tools. Sugar soap. Oil filler. Rubbing down blocks. Brush for dusting. Sample paints. Cloth for wiping brushes and hands. Soap for washing brushes and hands. Before you begin, we recommend that you first read the application instructions and tips included in our brochure and on our website. Estimated rate of distribution per coat is 12 to 20 square metres per litre of paint. The drying time of the paint is 2 to 3 days under normal drying conditions. The optimal temperature to apply the paint is approximately 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. Make sure that you have good ventilation in the room where you're painting, especially for drying purposes. Remove all loose paint with a putty knife and scraper. Then rub down the entire surface with a rubbing down block. Wash all the surfaces with sugar soap to remove the dirt and grease. Open the can with a putty knife so that the lid is not damaged. An undamaged lid is easy to put on again and tightly seals the contents. When painting indoors, always add 1% extra drying agent to the paint to speed up the drying time. Mix all the ingredients to an homogeneous consistency. Mark up a can in 3 equal parts for mixing a primer. Pour the paint up to the first line, and then the boiled linseed oil to the top line. Mix thoroughly until it has become homogeneous. Begin by painting the wood exposed areas. Place the brush in raw linseed oil until the next application. Replace the lid of the can and label it so that you know just what there is in the paint store. After the paint has dried in about 2 days, any unevenness can be filled in using the oil filler. The level of work with the filler is determined by the requirements of the final result. Once the filler has dried after about a day, the filled surfaces are rubbed down until smooth. Brush away the remaining dust. Wipe away any excess oil from the brush and wipe it with a cloth. Stir the paint before each application. To paint a piece of furniture with many nooks and crannies may require several different brushes in order to gain access everywhere. For those hard-to-reach areas, we're using a small round brush and an angled flat brush. Make sure that you have only a little paint on your brush so that it doesn't run and result in an uneven finish. For the large surfaces, we're using a flat varnish brush. On the larger surfaces, the paint is worked in using repeated brush strokes to access all the irregularities. Finally, long brush strokes are used to achieve a nice smooth finish. Keep the brush in raw linseed oil until the next application. Linseed oil paint has very good coverage, but in some places it has penetrated into the material and left dull spots. Therefore, we're going to paint the bench a second time to achieve the desired result. In the final application, we have chosen to add about 10% linseed oil varnish to acquire a higher gloss finish and a better paint dispersal. Linseed oil varnish is mixed into the undiluted paint. Wipe off any excess oil from the brush and wipe it with a cloth. Lightly rub down before painting so that all irregularities are removed. Brush off the remaining dust. During the work, we decided to use a different shade on the seat, and therefore we used a colour chart to help us decide which particular shade we think would be suitable. This new paint also has a drying agent and linseed oil varnish added in the same proportions as before. Mix well until the paint is homogeneous. Stir the paint before applying it. Now we're painting the bench for the last time, and we begin at the top to avoid any splashing. The seat is now painted with the newly chosen paint shade, and it will cover nicely with just one coat. Paint with a light touch, and at the edges apply the paint from the outside and inwards. Avoid having too much paint on the brush. The paint will cover well. Finish off with long evening out brush strokes to acquire a really nice finish. Finish by painting the undersides of the bench and again use long brush strokes to finish off. Make a final check that nothing has been missed. It is important that the cloth is rinsed in water before throwing it away to prevent spontaneous combustion. Wash the brushes in soap and water. It is a good investment to look after your brushes, as a good brush is expensive. A second-hand, well-maintained brush is also better to work with than one that is brand new. If you intend to continue painting in a few days using the same paint, it is not necessary to wash the brushes, but just let them remain in raw linseed oil so that the paint doesn't dry. The bench now fits nicely into its surroundings and has been given a beautiful and durable finish.